Hello. Hello, Mansworth. How are you doing? How are you today? Come on, work. Come on. I'm doing good. I'm just failing at programming today. Oh. Oh. I get it. I get it. Initiative view has key identifier. That's why that's failing. That will now work. Let's try that now. There's certain things I do every day that I don't know. I think the experience is knowing how to go figure out what's going wrong and what to look for, and rather than actually, oh well, that's easy. That's just this in the field. I'm doing so many different things with this project that I'm all over the place with it. Oh, that won't work. Oh dear, let's start read only. You need a gateway. So I'm validating that I can get the initiative coming down on the planning item, and then we can move on and add the edit piece. Oh, come on. Why are you failing? Invalid column name initiative ID. I don't get where you're doing initiative ID on that. Left join initiatives view on p.initiative ID. You see this field here, right? It's great if I actually make it match on the other side. So again, this is scripts, planning items, no, view. This one is the view for initiatives. Initiatives view. And needs ID. So when you're working on something, right? So I need the initiative ID to be brought through here, otherwise it's completely useless. So pi.initiative ID. Now, I don't need to join that here, right? There's no need in joining it there because I'm going to join on it later on anyway. That would just make that query unnecessarily big that view unnecessarily big if I don't join on that field, right? So I can conditionally join on those extra fields. Then we take this, generate that, and go find. No, this one's fine. This one's fine. I'm not dealing with up downs or rollbacks of the changes. If once I go to put this onto the little box, I'm going to back up all the databases and validate that they restore. And then once they validate the restore, I will run all the up migrations and changes. And actually, thinking about that, I do want a... Yeah, I'm going to have to do... No, I can put a drop in here. I'll have to do the drop of the view and run the scripts again. Yeah, that's going to be a pain point deliberately, I think. So now with initiative ID included in the view, that column will be mapped and now the join should work. And we should find that we can see the planning item with its associated initiative when it has one here. So how's your finance manager project coming along? What diversion have you headed down now? You seem to be a master of uh uh oh look, I'll go this direction. Oh look, I'll go this direction. You seem to have that ability nailed. There, attachments, initiative. There we go. We got an initiative. So that one's on sample and that one's on testing. Making the pages right up. Nice, nice. That's cool. You're getting it together. That's your project look clean so far. Delta, good morning. How are you doing? Okay, so we have initiative on there. Okay, so that's all we need for that piece. Let's before I bother restarting it and allowing the edit, let's get that working in here. So on this side of things, we need to get the this piece, the planning item, to pull the initiative. ID, identifier, don't need commas. That breaks my brain. Name, expected start date, expected end date. There you go. Yeah, it breaks my brain every time, the lack of commas, etc. So this, when I fetch a single planning item, will load that up. So I should be able to go now to the planning, add edit planning item dialog. If I go to this code, we do have set value on open dialog. So in theory, if we open that one, if we open another planning item, and we edit it, we should have the initiative selected. What do we do? So we did the current item initiative. Oh, it loaded. Fetch one should be called. We should be able to see the network traffic of the fetch one. Yeah, I think that went and worked because. Hold on. Let's make sure that works again. Edit. That does not make a call. That makes the call. Ooh. That's an interesting fact. So now, if I edit that, yep. was reminded to do something. So the problem there is when I expand this, it calls fetch one, so it gets the detail because it pulls the requirements and everything else, right? So what was happening there is when I hit the edit initially, it just takes the planning item as it is. It assumes that everything's good. So I need to, it just reminded me that I need to consider how I pull the data, like what sort of patterns do I have here? I don't want to be busily, I don't want to be busily pulling the data from the server every time I touch something, right? I don't want to keep pulling the entire initiative and the planning item and all the information about it every single time, but I can't have that there. So the next option is when I open the dialog is to make sure that the current item is fetched by using the store and saying, you know, this dot store dot I think it's load by identifier item dot identifier ID, right? Actually, current item is item or that. So if, yeah, it expands the detail on the, so rather than load everything about the planning item, what I do is use GraphQL to load the basics of the information. When I click the expand, I go and make another call and add in all the extra information I want, right? And I potentially don't even need that because all I need at that point is the counts on these, right? But, you know, what is the right data access pattern here? Do I store it when I expand it? When I click it and, well, I don't want to load all that information all the time. I might not need 90% of it. So why bother pulling all the notes, all the requirements, all the attachments for every single planning item when I load the table? Right. That's what I'm saying. There needs to be, I need to consider a better design here. Same planning item row plus detail. Well, that's what it does. Right. This information plus this information is loaded. Right. This, and the initiative is not loaded because it has no bearing. It actually will, initiative will be included in the default. So this problem will actually go away by virtue of me including it in this query because I want to filter on it, right? I want to filter on initiative before this streams out. But it does go to, there's got to be some better data access patterns here, like some better designs that I need to consider in terms of knowing when I should go to the server or knowing that I don't need to go to the server, right? So yeah, I don't know. You could grab all the data until some kind of create edit has been made, since this screen is essentially read-only. I am so happy. Seribot is a good is worth getting configured. It's so simple to get added to your channel, and it will catch those best viewers on really quick. You could grab all the data until some kind of create edit has been made, since this screen is essentially read-only. Well, so when I load this now, right, if you'll notice that there's no loading screen, it knows that this is loaded now, right? So it doesn't go and refetch it. This one, it just fetched it. You saw the little loading icon, right? That one again, it's going to the server and grabbing it again, right? So, but it doesn't do it the second time because it's loaded all the data into the client and it's marked it as current now, right? But now I have no way of, other than when I change something about that object on my side, knowing that it needs to be reloaded. So if someone else goes and edits that planning item, I don't know about it right now, and it won't reload for me. It'll be in that state. So that's what I'm saying. In terms of how do I update data? When do I update data? That's one of the things I want to learn more about and learn some better designs around. This problem is going to go away because, as much as, so that fetch one, that's because this project's requirements, attachments, etc. Yes. Yeah. So if you come in and change a planning item, the only way I've got right now of understanding that is to refresh. So, and I'm sure you've been in a system, well, yeah, I'm sure you've been in a system where someone said, just refresh your screen and get the latest data, right? The benefit of doing this is that the system is quick, right? Because once you've loaded the data, you don't need to keep messing around with it. The challenge of doing that is once I load the data, I technically need to say, oh, by the way, right now I care about changes for this object. So I need to put some sort of flag in to say, hey, if you see anything about this, just let me know, right? Oh, it's a very high cost. So I have a thought on how to do it. So basically, if I expand this item, right, or I edit this item, etc., I care about this item, right? So subscribe to this. Now, when I get a change coming in from the other side, I do know when things happen. Basically, flag to the client, oh, this is stale, by the way. So the next time I go to look at it, if I go to edit it or I go to do whatever. So what I was about to do is in here, basically say if item not equal to, not equal to undefined, then this dot store dot load by that's a really bad name because, right? Yeah. Right. That will load that up. But in here, this load by identifier, this will have a check to see, am I current? And if I am current, don't bother making the server call. I have a socket. I have a WebSocket available to me, and there's a GraphQL WebSocket available to me that I can push to, and I actually have that in place almost. One of the first things I did was put an authenticated WebSocket in here, and it knows who I am. Yeah. So when the changes happen, it does tell the client, or it does tell the server. The structure is in place to do it. It's just I've got to figure out what subscription looks like in terms of do I tell the client, right? Because if you think about it, if the client looks at 200 items, I've got to search every client's ID every time I get a change. That's quite a tough challenge. Yeah. From changes, it's preferably Kafka queue. Well, so the way this flows, that's not the right one. Do I have both open? No, I do not. No, that's a different one. Liquid. I wonder if you could either a socket to change section or just poll changes to update data. So as of right now, there is the changes piece is calculating what has changed, right? It's here's the things that have changed. This enriches those changes so that they can be sent there. There is, right this second, a notifications component that says, oh, by the way, I care about this object. Right. So if you remember seeing this icon, right now that it's not really hooked up in this version. But basically the idea here is you say, I care about this item. And what would happen is by clicking that, it will then tell you about that object. It will push, by the way, this changed down to the client through the WebSocket. Right. So the infrastructure for that is actually in place. Maybe it's not. Maybe I removed. Oh no, here you go. Item updated consumer, right? So this will actually push notifications down to the client because GraphQL does support WebSockets. If you put GraphQL on the changes aggregate, you have a socket readily available. I mean, I can subscribe to the changes stream, right? I don't even need to put it necessarily on the changes. I can just subscribe to that piece. So what happens is this consumer gets notified right now, and that's what's pushing down. So the this consumer takes events, and then this sends down to hot chocolate. This is a hot chocolate subscription. So I need to learn more about how to use topics in the in the subscriptions piece. What's the message that is in the Kafka from changes the current flow? It goes through a few aggregates, right? Not necessarily aggregates, but it goes through. So when it gets produced out of here, it calculates the changes of that object. It then publishes out what has changed, like the fields. It was this, and now it is this. It was this, it's now this, right? The transform pipeline enriches that data and produces more readable format of that, and produces that, and that's what Vue picks up right this second, so that Vue can show the changes, which I'm not actually currently showing. I've removed because there's just too many little pieces to tidy up there. So essentially, though, all I need to do is listen to this stream. I don't care about this one because it's basically, oh, by the way, things changed. The problem is the subscription side of this, right? So how do I? So this is per user, right? This knows. Is it this one? Planning item updated, send async, notification received. There is something in here that does socket auth, that deals with who you are. Is that view getting changes from every user, or can it subscribe to a topic for a user or customer? Well, it's getting everything, every single change is coming through there, right? You have to determine, okay, is it for my tenant and is it for me? Do I care? Right. So again, this is not something I want to try and hook in now because it's a much bigger conversation. It's a much more deliberate piece of software, right? But if I edit this, I now care about this. If I open this, do I care about this? Right? Or can I just fetch it every single time at that point? Right? Should I fetch it every single time, or should I cache it for 5 minutes and then go and fetch it again? Right? What sort of strategy should I put in there? You could argue that if I'm working on a planning item or I'm working on something, I really care about I really care about things changing on this. So if someone else is working on this planning item with me, or they're adding tasks, let's say the developers are off adding tasks against a planning item while I'm working on this, I want to know, right? I want to see them change. So basically, I open this, that registers my interest for it. While it's open, I definitely have interest. If I close it, do I remove my interest in it? Probably. If I edit it, I think I retain interest in it, right? Because I've changed it in this session. So expiring those things, putting caching around when I request, because there is a cache on the fetch. So in the load, planning item store, query, load by identifier, right? You can see, actually this one is, actually all I'm testing here is, do I have requirements? And if I do, return. I don't need to do anything else, right? So this is wrong. This should change, because basically in here, right now I have, where is it? Fetch a network only. So there's different policies, right? Cache first, but what does the expire in the cache look like? How long, what is that window like? I don't know. So I need to learn some things there, right? So basically right now I make sure that I always go to the network. And one line, good morning, by the way. Thank you for the shout out for Emporium Guy. If you could just say, I'm customer 12, give me all the changes, you could populate it with all the data, then load just the deltas after the point through a socket. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd want the latest snapshot when I get the change. Yeah, it's just figuring out how to do that properly. So right now, is because, you know, when I hit edit, I don't get the initiative, but if I expand and then hit edit, I get the initiative because the initiative is now loaded. Realistically, because I want to do filtering, these go in here anyway, so this is not an actual problem for right this second. So yeah. And changes will be massively noisy with things moving around. But yeah, all I need to do is say, okay, well, one of the ideas I had was just go and make a head request and get the last updated. And if the last updated differs, we pull, right? Otherwise, we don't make any more requests. So we still hit for every single one, but we hit the head with a simple query against the object of its last updated. And if its last updated doesn't match what we have, then we turn around and ask for all the data. That's another option as well. But that's, again, noisy from a traffic perspective. What I'm trying to figure out is, how do I make this less noisy, but make the app responsive, but also make sure that it's getting the data it needs to get. So push is definitely the right way to allow them to get realistic edits, but I don't want to say, oh, something changed here, have some more data, because I don't want to assume that everyone's seeing that data, right? So it has to be an intent, like some sort of intentional design from that perspective. Okay, so now with that done, right, it shouldn't matter if I refresh and hit edit on this, I should still have the initiative in place. There you go. And yet when I expand, oh, hold on. Don't think there's an initiative on that, but I expand. Yeah, they're loading. Yeah, just do whatever's simplest right now, because there's all the baby stuff that app is probably missing. Yeah, there's a ton of other features to work on before we get to that refinement. But it's why I do want to get Camille in here and maybe get a stream or two together with him to go through some of my patterns in Angular and go through some of how I'm using the signal stores and see if we can learn some more efficient things before I start worrying about that too much. But I do have an authenticated WebSocket. I do have an authenticated WebSocket to the server side. I do know when things change. I can know when things change. I don't know exactly right this second. I'm told of the planning item based upon the push notification, but I could consume the stream of changes and hook that up differently. Like I could, yeah. There's options, and also using GraphQL isn't necessarily the right thing to do. I might hook SignalR in there as well for a different WebSocket because I do want to pull some of the GraphQL socket stuff out because I feel some of that is notifications based and that doesn't live in the read only world of the view. The inbox configuration, when you get messages, all those sorts of things, those are user configurable pieces. But anyway, let's get this edit working. I think we validated the view. Right, we validated that piece. Include initiative on planning item queries. My developer brain really wants to solve this one. Oh, it's a challenging one, without a doubt. I just don't have I do not have the capacity to handle that as well as everything else right this second. I got to pick and choose my battles a little bit, right? Update item view to include like this project is to the point where it is everything is a lot of work. There's just more and more and more to do, and that's great from a personal project perspective. Like there is always something I could be doing. It's bad in that I really, really want to get to a like right now I'm the product owner. I'm the CEO. Like, come on, developers, why are you moving faster? Right? It's just a screen. It's just a button. Like, I am that. There's just so many things I want to see, but you're not getting there fast enough. Like I've got big dreams. But, I need to get to them. Update planning item view to include initiative ID on the oh, need to do one more thing. In here, no, infrastructure, view type. Side question, does NoSQL have performance improvements that can be made similar to indexing in SQL? I am not certain about that. I haven't looked at performance tuning NoSQL before, if I'm honest. It's not something I've had directly mentioned either, so yeah, efficient storage of data makes sense. Same as Kafka there, right? Yeah, I have not learned about that. We need to figure out this as well. That's kind of that field is actually to do with the notifications, so it actually doesn't matter at this point. Descriptor field F goes to F dot initiative ID dot ignore. Well, let's fix this properly. We can do this much cleaner now. Ignore. Why make 2 calls when you can make 1? Ignore. The system you've built would be fairly fast in NoSQL land because of the aggregate's proper data separation. It's pretty fast in SQL land as well, right? Yeah, projections and stuff in NoSQL. You got to consider your data structures a bit different. And a part of this was in NoSQL. Couchbase and the ticket system I actually think should still be in stash Couchbase tickets. So this is the version with I mean this is pretty much useless at this point, but Couchbase was the original backing for the ticket system, and I think it still should be. I think the tickets make perfect sense in NoSQL because they're a lot of text, and there's a lot of just adding content there. So yeah, ticket is probably going to go back to Couchbase or Mongo. Changes is all Mongo because I'm just snapshotting objects, but those object shapes can change over time, and I don't want to have to deal with, oh no, I changed the schema. Oh no, I've got to now redeploy changes every single time. That's just not something I want to do. Okay. Yeah, okay. So that stops me from selecting initiative ID in the query on the GraphQL side. So here in the schema, right now, if I type initiative, you see it'll give me ID. I do not want to expose internal IDs, so I hide that with the ignore there. So it's a good way of just control it. I can use the data in the back end, but provide blocks to make sure that certain fields aren't visible from the front end. So the object looks like it's a different shape from the view perspective. Now querying, update planning item view to include initiative ID and update. So, so that's actually in that style. That's a feature, and and yeah. Okay, and include, ignore, update, ignore. Push that. We haven't changed anything in terms of events right now, so that's fine. Okay, so now we need to address the update side of things on the planning. So we have a planning item with a post, and we take initiative identifier, but now we need to do the put. So let's go back over to here, tasks. How did I break these tasks down? Let's see how good I was. Okay, here we go. Planning item update. Include initiative as nullable GUID, include initiative in update planning item. Now, a lot of the stuff is already done because like the integration events and stuff, they're already done. I just need to make sure, this is just to make sure that it is triggering. And then on the client side, basically allow it to update the value and post back to this endpoint. So this should, famous last words, this should be relatively simple. So let's go to planning application, tests, concerning planning item updated. When initiative is now set. Initiative ID is set. Planning item updated event, domain event is queued. That's interesting. I've got planning item not actually updated and it not being there, but I do not have Oh, by the way, it doesn't update. This is the problem with moving on from unit tests to be moving the stream forward, right? That's costing me in some respects because um, um, sorry, it's costing me in some respects because I'm trying to be pragmatic about like, okay, sitting here writing unit tests is really hard to engage with from a stream perspective. If I can get to the UI and get things visual in terms of what it's actually doing, that is a much more engaging experience. So people are more likely to ask questions, hang around, and talk about the actual code. If I'm more in this world than this world, this people's eyes glaze over very quickly, and that's just the nature of this. And I can't necessarily talk about this at the same time because I'm trying to think about what I'm trying to do. So let's at least base some of this on, right? So the planning item domain service is actually the one where I do the update in. That's why this has no that's why this has no code in it, because this service, the domain test, is actually where it gets done. That's an interesting problem. So I have, because the logic is a bit more complicated than just dealing with the planning item, I move it into a domain service because now there's a bit more, there's rules around it, things to trigger, different things to happen. So that qualifies as it's not just CRUD, therefore it's not application layer, it's domain layer, because there's things that might go into deciding that. So that's kind of my balance right this second. That's how I'm determining that. So this is not a valid test here because it's just it's kind of a pass through. That being said, right? Uh, this needs a little bit more reinforcement because this test is going to miss things. This is going to miss if I don't add a field into the. So, as much as I don't want to write these tests, right? Essentially, what I need to write is when tenant and identifier aren't going to change, right? When title changes, when description changes, when review changes, when created by user identifier changes, when assigned user changes, when initiative identifier changes, when status changes, all those should trigger. Those tests need to live here. And they need to live there because I could miss one of these and then be sat there twiddling my thumbs as to, oh, why am I not getting a change? I think I should be getting a change. Well, it's because I kind of ignored one of these and the rest of them haven't changed. And now it's just skipping by. Because again, the handler is deciding, okay, no changes, finished, right? So in here, if I add initiative right now into here, like if I add initiative on the end here, right? So if I do GUID initiative identifier, right? If I do that and I even pass it through to my update, this will still mean that it won't get picked up. So I need to make sure I've got the relevant tests for all those fields. You know, it's kind of, it is literally when title is changed. When description is changed. This is where unit testing seems really silly because it's like, oh, it's just the same thing over and over and over again, but it's capturing these scenarios, and this will allow me to prevent missing that thing because I'll have to explicitly test them. So created by can't change when assigned user is changed. So I'm doing this preemptively. So I'm going to put a failing test in each of these so that I have to come back and fill these in, but I'm not going to do them on stream because doing them on stream is just not, it's not as effective as I want it to be. When initiative is changed. I don't need to use the word identifier. And then when status is changed. So yes, I'm technically cheating in terms of TDD because I am going to go and make sure that this will work, and then my test is all going to pass, right? But that's okay for right this second. So assert true, false, right? These will fail. These tests will fail. They're explicitly dumb enough to be very obvious. I don't want if they just sit there, they'll all pass. There'll be no test to run, therefore they'll all pass. So I don't want to do that. I want them to be explicit. And yeah. But now we have when no changes are made, right? Here we have an there's our object, and we're passing in because it's all built. Right. Okay. So let's go into the handler. And we do need to deal with initiative ID. And we also need to put a test in when initiative is changed. Yeah. So we've got a pattern in this piece for this, right? I'm about to copy it, and I don't want to copy the wrong version. I should have done this. This is causing a lot of the warnings that shouldn't be there, and I don't feel like trying to override the default behavior. Even this isn't perfect, but it's better than the yellow warning that's giving me. It wants me to make them const, but I don't make them const because I don't like having the const and the mixed const with the read only when I get to GUIDs. That might be considered a little bit neurotic, but result. My hands are cold. Okay, that should still build. Everything should still build. Nothing should necessarily fail at this point. But if you're just joining, if you're new to the stream, you're more than welcome to ask questions, share thoughts or opinions on what I'm doing or on the software in general. So we're going to take this So I am gonna build this unit test because I want it to be the reason for the change that I'm about to make. I am trying to be at least somewhat uh, uh, confident in the changes I'm making for a reason, right? So this one will change the review date, right? I don't want that, so we're going to get rid of this one, current review date, and we're going to do private read only GUID current initiative ID equals null, which may seem like a very silly GUID expected initiative ID equals GUID.new GUID. All right, so we're gonna validate that we're gonna change it. There just needs to be current review date. Provide a second just to make it build. Current review date. Let's change this to initiative. Initiative is updated. You'd think I'd be a little better at typing this by now, but it's still eluding me. It's funny that when you work in a larger system, over time, you're repeating the same things over and over and over and over again because they're core concepts within the system. You can't avoid them, right? It's just the way it is. But you can still typo them pretty badly. And after a while, because you're seeing the word so often, you don't necessarily catch the typos very easily. That's why code reviews are actually effective. That's an interesting one. Initiative. Let's come back around on that. This is where the business behavior starts coming. So what I do is I trigger different events in this than I do on the that is a useful thing. Planning item updated event is published, so this should still happen. Initiative right now, that's fine. Well, current initiative ID, right? I want to make it explicit that it's that. Current review date. Then we want to pass in initiative. Expected initiative ID. So this planning model now doesn't support that. So let's do, that. But now we need to do null there, right? This is, that is project identifiers. Just good practice if you put in null arguments in, because we can now specify these in .NET. We have been for a while, but I think this is a good thing to start practicing more of, being explicit about that. Same with true and false variables. You can use this method with them. Well, you can use it with anything, but I think it's really good idea. From a documentation perspective, or from a readability perspective. And yeah, this is a unit test, but it doesn't matter. It's still valid. Okay, so what we want to do, and p dot initiative identifier equals expected initiative remember the language. Yeah, okay. So our test should run and fail. Yeah. So we didn't get that. We did get the planning item. We did get the result, right? So we did get a result of true because everything succeeded. I have still never written a test. Thank you for the follow, Cat. I've been coding for 6 years. because you don't want to, because you don't think you've got a need, or what are you working on? So I am working on a project management and planning application, um, building. Uh, and right this second, I'm building some unit tests out, which is extremely lazy. So this project is a .NET application built because I feel that there are some problems I have with the way that software is planned and prepared from a project management perspective, and that was a lot of P's. Um, so I am building an application that will allow me to separate out the project management and planning, and actually the work that needs to be done. If you give me 1 second, I can run it and show. Um, yeah, that's fine. Actually, I can show you what it looks like right this second. So this is the current version. So basically, planning and actual work are separated into two separate pieces. So when we're talking about planning, this is actually the software in its current form, and its current deployed form, and we're using this to plan the software already. So here we have some items. Right now, I'm working on my assigning planning items to initiatives. I'm working on these tasks. So we have a review date. A project manager would be dealing with this. They'd be coming up with the idea, putting this into requirements. And this, again, this language is the language of the business, not necessarily the language of the developer. Because I am the developer and the PM at this case, some of these are going to be a little bit poor to show. But the concept is that the product manager comes in, adds the requirements, and the developers can sit there and look at these and build tasks out against these requirements. If we go over to the task side of things, this is more where the developers would work in. And the sprint we have, right? More Kanban right now than sprint. They can look at this and see what they need to work on and be focused on those pieces only. So they can build out the tasks specifically for the thing they need to do. So these tasks can be technical, they can be small, but a requirement is built up of many tasks. And this is kind of the concept we're working with right this second. So what I'm working on right now is allowing a roll up of planning items to become part of an initiative, and an initiative would then allow you to group those planning items and see where you are in terms of progress there. But the goal is to allow the developers to get on with the development when they need to, and the planning team to be gathering requirements and planning in the way they need, while representing progress through like the link of task to requirement. So what I'm doing right this second is I'm getting some unit testing because I'm applying the initiative on the update side. I got it working on the add side yesterday. I'm getting that. But the way the stream works, if you have questions, thoughts, or opinions on what I'm doing, you think that I'm doing something terrible, as long as you can say this is why I think it's terrible and why I do this, and show me a different way, I am perfectly happy to engage in that sort of conversation. I reserve the right to say no, I'm good, thank you, and do it my way anyway. But you know, the stream should be about learning and growth, and I'm doing this on stream to share building an actual realistic application. I have been a .NET dev for about 20 years, so it's kind of my go-to. Um, it's a very viable language. There's lots of tools there. I can do lots of things with it. You can build services. You can build well. So the application structure looks like this, right? This is the overall piece, right? So each of these is different services. These are APIs, individual APIs. I've got a gateway. There's RabbitMQ, Kafka, everything in here, and I can do all of that in .NET. So I'm pretty comfortable with using the language. Not that I can't learn anymore. I've got plenty to learn. Um, yeah. Okay, so let's get this fact in there, and then let's get um, initiative updated event is queued. So do I need to care about this? If I queue it, I'm just going to create noise in the system. I don't have a need for this right this second, so this is actually not something I want to handle. So let's not do that. Let's validate that we got it and we get the planning item updated. The way this is going to work, right? When I update the planning item, right, this will change. This will send in that. So again, I can do, I can pass that in now. We can test um, that, right? This will pass that through. When that triggers a change, the planning item, well, the subscriber, um, the planning item updated event will fire, right? I don't have a need to do anything with the uh, the initiative changing right now, but I can definitely see a need for that in the future. Mr. Jones, good day. How are you doing? So if we get this working, we can get the application up and running again, and then we can show you what the current version of this looks like. So when initiative is changed, let's go in here now. So we should, we got a failing test. So if we go into the update planning item here, what you'll see is this is just a bunch of method calls against the planning item itself, because the planning item is quite a rich object. Thanks for showing your project. I have to go back to learning. Go have a wonderful stream. Lovely cat, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. And hope to see you again. And good luck with your learning. Go Rust. I've looked a little bit, but I haven't got any real practical application for them at this point. So I'll just be picking them up for the sake of picking them up, right? Later on as an experiment in Liquid Sky, though, when we when we have some time, I do want to build a component in a different framework just to prove that it is just as viable, right? Just to demonstrate that fact. So here I broke everything down into different things on the planning item, right? That might seem excessive, right? Because now there's a lot of methods on the planning item, but this is actually not uncommon. One thing it is making me consider is that there's probably a little bit too much attached to the planning item itself. This is getting a little bit big. Maybe I need to consider a different design here. Like associating projects, do I need to have the planning item deal with that? Probably not. I can probably just associate projects with the planning item. Attachments the same, right? And when I change that, and I can react to those events and still publish the planning item with the information on it, so it looks like it's all attached. So this is down for review later on. But anyway, we now need to do public void update initiative GUID. Yeah, it knows exactly what I want to do. So you might be like, well, hold on, you've got checks for the changes earlier on. Why do you need to validate that this is like we're not changing anything? Well, we do trigger the planning item updated event. These get debounced, by the way, so it doesn't produce 7 different messages if I change 7 different fields. Um, but you could load this object from anywhere in the system, right? You could create a new handler and load it without even thinking about it and say, oh, I need to update this, and you go and update it, and then all of a sudden the system's producing no events or data's out of sync, etc. So what this does is mean that if you want to update the initiative, you can't change the initiative ID on the object and save the object back. You have to call this method, and this is the last guard of if you didn't change it, there's no point, right? So yes, it's a little redundant, but I can be more explicit about the here you nothing changed if I'm doing it separately in the application layer, but I can make sure it cannot happen. If you're not actually updating it, it doesn't trigger anything on that. So yeah, it's it's an interesting challenge. So that's why this is in domain services as well, uh not in um the application, because there's just too much going on here. There's different events I could trigger, and also I might want to trigger other events from within here, or follow a different logic flow. Um, that's an interesting one. That should be that, right? So now if we run the test, we should get a pass. And there's all our failing tests, which should fail, right? Okay. Update planning item command changed. Um, Actually, let's change this a little bit. So what is this in that? Um, um, Mojo sent me something last night. This is refactor, right? Refactor, change casing to for unit test to commit that. Mojo, I'm trying. How's it going? I want to see what it looks like, and the only way I'm going to do that is if I actually try and do some of this, right? Um, this is feature, feature, feature. You were talking to Patrick at 1:30. Oh dear. Yeah, he's easy to sit down and lose hours to talking to because he's energetic and it kind of follows. Include initiative on planning item and on update. Modify application to track change to check changed and update domain service. Just random capitalization. Domain service to update initiative. Um, okay, these tests I do not want to commit right now. I want to come back and I need to come back and fix them. I can't leave them out there much longer because that that whole it bugged me. Okay, so we can go to the API now. To put, and we can add. Interesting. Public period 1:30. That's funny. Initiative identifier. So we can add that in there now. So this should all build. Now, because we trigger the planning item update when we change the initiative and we validate that that event gets queued still, I know that the planning item has already dealt with the publishing initiative. So I should be comfortable enough to just say, okay, well, let's just edit it. Let's see where this takes us. Starting to get rid of to use our new style, so that's why that's disappeared. Need to figure out what these are going to look like as well, whether they go into a shared class or they come from somewhere. Maybe there's a module of permissions per. I don't know. I'll have to talk. Okay, so that's that. So on the client side now, we actually need to just go and get just. I dislike the word and I use it all the time. So when we go to planning items right, we do update planning item, right? We pass in the updated item and we go here. So what we need to do now is initiative identifier is planning item initiative ID. So now that's on the update. That should, apart from now, update needs to take initiative this dot value, right? This will actually update the underlying object. So once it confirms that it's saved to the server, this will take. So that will be the initiative that's attached. So that being said, if we go here now and change this to sample start end, does that work? Well, we passed initiative identifier. It did not error, which is normally a good first sign. Let's go back over here. Localhost, no, localhost 80. My hands are freezing. So we updated the planning item 35 seconds ago and we changed 5145. Actually, we probably can see this. Why isn't changes producing anything? There should be a change on the planning item there. Interesting. Maybe changes is breaking. That would be bad. That would be a lesson I don't want to learn right this second. Oh no. Yeah. Ooh. I mean, this is bad. This is definitely bad that it's broken. I've got to figure out why. Um, but the fascinating thing here is that or the point is, the system is not actually broken because of this, right? There's kind of, if this was a monolith, that would have brought the system down and have had to go fix the changes, right? But because of the way the system's working, the system's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm just not able to see what's changed, right? So we change that to be a different initiative. We go over here and edit that now. Sample start end. So that is actually, I reloaded that then. So um, just for validation, if we go and change that again to can start on date. We change this one to sample initiative. We change this one to testing. Right. Now, if I hit edit, that's gonna. Oh, that's interesting. Is that not actually applying? No, they're applying. 3454. Refresh. Start on date. Testing. Sample. Did I change that? Testing. Yeah. Okay. I changed that one and not that one. Let's change that one to testing. Testing. Is that moving things around on me? I think this grid's moving things around on me. I think I've got to reflect on how this grid is doing things. But that's another problem. Something's going weird with the grid. Um, but the major point there is, yeah, that one's now got 4, 3, 4, 5, 4. Let's change that to testing. Save that. See how quick it does it. There you go. 4. We changed. A couple of seconds latency. Okay, so but the update is changing. The change is happening. That was, you know, first time. So one more change for this piece right this second, right? So that's useful. So we got the playing item update done, right? That's useful. We did that. Okay. But now what would be more useful is if we can say, okay, just show me all the initiatives for a particular thing. So in this filter, we want to be able to say, let's just go and get those initiatives. Let's go and review how I did that piece. Let's make sure this is actually committed separately. Feed update initiative edit dialog. Yeah, if you have any questions, thoughts or opinions on what I'm doing, if you want to learn more, there is also a Discord that you're more than welcome to join and ask and hang out in. We do hang out in there through the day sometime, and in the evenings we kind of chat. More than welcome to share your projects or ask for other sets of eyes on projects. Okay. So planning item, planning dashboard, planning items. This is the grid. So the filters. The filters are here, and let's add in div class equals flex, flex call, label or equals initiatives filter class equals I think I made this field label. Initiative app initiatives autocomplete ID equals initiative filter form control equals initiative okay, go back here, we have signed initiative form control. Wow, I did this a little bit differently. This dot assigned initiative equals new form control. So on the form control is that apply filter. So we have an apply filter method, which we're going to take in let initiative filter equal this dot assign initiative dot value. I think that's because I made an array out of it, but let's figure that out. Initiative. Actually, let's just pass in that. It's much clearer right this second. Saber, hello. How you doing? How's things going? That won't click. So we go here, filters. So we need an extra filter on here. So this is, oh dear. Apply filter is with state, filter state. So filter state is actually a thing that I need to build. Initiative. This needs to be a initiative undefined. That's going to be from the model. I am right now trying to add in some filters on a table. And then the actual state is selected initiative is an initiative or undefined. This took ages for me to figure out how to make this apply, by the way. So selected initiative is undefined. This is for the planning items. This is showing a list of planning items for which we are trying to filter. Defined. Patch state. Selected assigned to selected statuses. Selected initiative is initiative. So that applies that state on there. Now, these Now, the way this works with the computed, the fact that I'm asking for this here means that this will make a change. If I don't ask for this state here, like initially I was trying to pass in the state change, the state here, but it wouldn't actually use it properly. But by virtue of having these here, these are the actual state properties, right? It subscribes to them, so when they change, it triggers. It triggers this filtered. Yeah, it got me a little bit. So, const initiative match equals. Now this is doing this all client side. So this is why I need the initiative loaded when I load the data now. If I wanted to make this a little bit more efficient on the data side, I wouldn't pull the initiative all the time. I could just pull the initiative title, but that would mean, well, I wouldn't even pull the initiative title, I don't think, at this point. I don't think it's a useful column to have, but filtering, definitely. Not initiative or b dot initiative dot id equals initiative dot id. Right, so that now means what? That should be compiled. So you go filters, initiative, sample initiative, can start on date, testing. That was right? 44443. Yeah. So if we move one, we clear that out, that should work. If we change this to be this one, this to be that one. Now when we change, we should get it. Now, because that updates immediately in the client, it doesn't matter that it didn't get on the server, right? So we have those two now. We have one there, and we have three there. Nice. So filter by initiative. Done. I mean, is any of this perfect? No. No, it's not perfect. There's lots of little flaws in here, but we can build on it. Okay. Filter on initiative in the running items table. Commit push. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, questions, opinions, you're more than welcome to share. Okay. Let's push those changes. So we have, I think that should have like a down arrow or something like that to or there should be a different design, because that isn't obvious that you click that again to make that go away. But that's a usability thing for later. That's not for now. Cool. So we have initiative included. We go here. These are those initiatives. Right now, this is not showing a lot. We probably need to now start showing some sort of status on these. But you can create an initiative and roll planning items up into initiatives. That's kind of what we kind of laid out. So this one was relatively quick to do. Let's go back to our planning, and let's go to GitHub. Get those. Well, I know what I'm gonna. I say that I know what I'm gonna do before finishing the stream today. So I'm going to, as much as it's not something I want to necessarily bore with, I think I will at least get those unit tests done so that I do not have them hanging over my head. So that would be bad. Include initiative. That's a feat, I suppose. On put to allow update of initiative. So we need to get the tests in here for these pieces. This is just good practice, right? Again, if I don't do these tests, it's possible that I could miss a change. And then I add in some fields and I'm like, oh, it's awesome. I can update the initiative. I can do this. And then if I don't change something else, the initiative doesn't get saved. And you end up scratching your head. So at least with these tests there, it will validate these are being validated, being tested properly. So when no changes are made. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this test. We're going to do the rename thing. Let's stop this running. So I'm going to base it on something. I'm not going to start from scratch because that's just, yeah. Don't forget, this class just validates the fact that things are, whether we need to call the domain service with the actual update. And rather than litter the domain service with a has this changed, has this not, I have the methods and just call update on all of them. And if something hasn't changed, it just won't create a change for that thing. Right. Okay. That's that one. Factor change correct case. Okay. So we can take this test because this is the nothing's changed, right? Paste that in there. Let's make sure we inherit from arrange act. Arrange act, by the way, is not a complicated class. It's just a class that has a constructor that calls arrange and then act. This is just a preference of mine for unit testing in that I have the setup of the thing and the act happening here rather than having them in every single test. And then I can just focus on the actual test itself. I like to try and use positive words to describe what it's doing so that I'm not saying should or maybe or could. I'm saying, yep, it does. And if it fails, it didn't do it. Okay, so this one is testing assigned user. Private read-only GUID, expected assigned user identifier equals GUID.new GUID. Right. Result of success, call to update was not made. Call to update was made. Right. Received. Just be sure to keep words plural. It'll make all the difference, you know. So this is going to send in that, and we're going to change this to be expected assigned user identifier. Call to update was made. Result is success. Right. Run unit tests. So when planning item is not found, when assigned user, so call to update was made, result success. We didn't return a result. Really? That's the big problem there. Update planning item. Oh, because I didn't configure it, right? Interesting. Because that returns the result of service dot update planning item arg dot any. Doesn't return that, does it? It just returns a result. Unit tests. I'm running all of them. I don't need to run all of them. There you go. When a sign user is changed. So now the way I validate that, so again, like I said, because I've made all the code pass, writing these unit tests after the fact is not good. Now, without changing the unit test, I should be able to make that fail, right? Because if I just remove the check on that field, it should not determine that there are no changes, right? So if I go here, go to no changes, and if I comment out this piece, right, and run the test again, let's just run that one unit test. This should fail now because now it's not changed, right? So it did return true because, uh, but yeah. So that's helping me validate that unit test is capturing that happening. And I have to do that for every single one of these because I want to make sure the unit test is actually catching something. Because I'm adding the unit test after the fact, I'm not doing TDD. It would be silly not to do this. So we're going to take this again. Actually, we can take that one again. Let's copy that. Morning, Des. Oh, yeah. Good day. How you doing? So let's move to description. Let's paste this in there. Let's get all the right pieces. Arrange at. Right. So we get rid of this one and we private read only expected description. We go down here. We make that current signed user identifier. We change this to expected description, right? And again, we run and I bet it'll pass, right? We need to make sure it won't pass. Actually, let's run the unit test. Let's get the greens where we need the green. Okay. I didn't run that other unit test after I changed it back. That was not a good choice. Okay. So again, these are really repetitive, but they are validating these fields. Are being verified. So now if we comment our description here, this test should fail. Right. The call didn't happen. It returns success because there's, yeah. Actually, I think what should happen is this should not have, I think this should be, is there no action? Like nothing to do? It's not wrong to call it. It's just like there's nothing to do, therefore, why bother? I like this test structure you got going on. Thank you. accepted maybe. Uh, yeah, I think the I don't have a it doesn't have anything to say. No action, no content is the closest it's got. It doesn't really matter because ultimately it's there's nothing to do. Like I just want to be able to say it's slightly different. Okay, so let's copy this. Let's go here. Let's inherit from a range act. Let's do this. Paste that. Okay. We can remove expected description now. And we are on initiative. Ooh. We didn't have initiative in those, did we? No, we did not. We need to have. Hmm, or just a regular success to make it idempotent. Yeah, that's what it does. It just returns success right now on nothing to do. It just returns success. So it's just I'm debating whether that's actually what I want. It doesn't matter that it represents it that way. It just it just matters that uh, okay, that's fine. So let's take this, move this in here. I'm doing that so that it's consistent, so that it doesn't matter because these are nullable fields, but I'm just trying to make it so that each one of these tests is very consistent with each other. Yes, if I had another field, it's all they've all got to change, but we're getting to that point where the system is big enough that now I start to see some of the creaking pieces and I start to think about how I design them differently, how might I break them up, and I can do that. Like 200 okay because it's already reflects as a requested change and allows the client to continue without knowing anything special went on. Exactly, yeah. It's just it doesn't matter that that returns success. It would be nice to know no change versus success, but it doesn't. That's not going to get relayed to the client anyway, and I'd be doing that for the purpose of the unit test, and yeah, it just means that that test is always going to pass no matter what it does. If it determines there's no changes, it's going to return success. It's essentially a silly test at this stage because it can't fail. We also need to deal with project identifiers. That's a little bit more involved. So copying this the way I have done is fine. Okay, so when initiative has changed, we have private, read only, GUID, expected, to so we change that there. And this should pass. Thank you for the follow, Phillips DS. Let's run the tests. Yep. Okay, so that passed because it's let's be clear. Uh, let's make sure that passes again. So I'm changing the test, not the code. Now I go change the code to validate the test passes for the right reason. So I go over here and comment out this line. I should now get a failure because I'm not checking if it's changed and everything else is not changed. So, ooh, that's bad. That is bad. That should not have passed. What did I mess up? That should not. Because it's a combination, right? Everything has to have changed. So that test should have failed. That should not have happened. Because I determined that there was no changes, so it should have come out and not done the call. So what? This should be a last resort in unit testing. It should be very obvious because of the code you're writing. Debug. Okay, so assigned user identifier, they're the same. Review date, they're the same. Title, description. Ah, there we go. There's why, because of my copy and paste master. I'm a wizard at copy and paste. That's why. Current description. There we go. Just needed to see it. Couldn't see the wood for the trees. But now the test should pass. That's legit. Okay, so I'm giving myself confidence that the tests are valid, that they will catch a problem. If I just dump the tests in there and call it quits, I'm not really doing anything. So I need to make sure that I'm at least validating the tests. If you have any thoughts, questions, opinions on what I'm doing, more than welcome to join in. If you have not done unit testing and you'd like me to slow down a little bit, you're more than welcome to ask. This is not TDD. TDD would have been doing this before I made the changes, but I try not to do too much testing on stream because I find that people don't find that as engaging. That's just not healthy. So we are testing when the review date is changed. So we go find our review date, current review date, and we create a making testing fun. Expected review date. I think there's something very satisfying about a unit test capturing an actual problem. Like when you have that, oh, it worked, it validated it. That moment, it's a very rewarding. How come you're not using async test methods? Just haven't done that before. I'm not really getting into that. So the getaway to I don't need the async stuff. And also the unit tests. So what would I be testing that's really necessary for async stuff? If I was doing integration tests, probably would need to lean more on async. Like if I was actually calling databases or APIs, etc. But these are just unit tests, so yeah. we change that. Is there something I would benefit from, do you think, by using async? Assume you saw the get awaiter in the array in the act. So this should fail on review date. Yeah, see, this is always going to pass no matter what. Okay, so we go put that back, and that test should pass legitimately. So still following the change the code or the test, but don't change both. Kind of am doing that, right? Copy that one. When state, right? We do arrange act. We remove that one because that's what tripped me up last time. And we change status this time. So private, read only, string, expected status. Oh, no. Current review date. Expected status. Can't read it just for that attach method, can I? No. I think your system is incredibly difficult to even add effective unit tests to. And that's an important thing to remember when you're writing unit tests, right? You can write unit tests. I could make these do whatever I wanted to do and I can make them pass. But at the end of the day, what I've got to do is I've got to be honest with myself and say, are they actually validating anything? Like that success, it's not really validating anything. There's no value to that. It's just bloating the number of unit tests. It's still representing what I want it to do. This still should return a success. I just need to figure out how to, like you need to do some refactoring before you can. Hey Zons, how you doing? To add tests in, it's coming along nicely. I'll give you a demo. Yeah, to change this one out, I really should validate the API call to make sure that that's okay with dealing whatever result I return. So it should probably return a no content on the change versus an okay. Something like that. But anyway, that started. So last couple of days, last 2 days, we've added a black screen that is not going to do anything because apparently, there we go. I mean, Mojo it's rearranging some of the code you do have into unit testable components. That's going to be a challenge. So what I've done over the last couple of days is added the concept of initiatives. So now initiatives are groupings of planning items. So you would be able to understand, oh, these initiatives become part of, these planning items are part of this initiative. Obviously, some great names here for right now. In the planning items themselves, we can now create a new planning item and we can assign it to an initiative when we create it. We can also edit the planning item and assign the initiative afterwards. And now we can filter on initiatives, so we can say, okay, what's in the testing initiative, etc. And we can search. Initiatives are a good step forward. It allows kind of more organization to the things. Yeah, starts to give a little more visibility into those planned features. Yeah, that's what we've been working on. So I was just finishing up some unit tests. When you're thinking to release V1, I think I want to get to. I think in March I want to release. So right now we have. Um, this is the current version. These features. This is all that's been done since the last version went live. So since this version went live, these are all the things that we've done. So we've started to add the backend piece. We've got the registration components in. We've got permissions checks in place. So we've got a setup for that. We've got what else have we got in here? Um, Initiatives. We got planning item updates. We got the new UI. We got the filtering working. So there's a lot of features in here that actually are, um, beyond where it was. Um, so I'm thinking that in March we release another update to this, so we can start testing it and see if I can get some people involved in having a go of it and seeing what happens. Um, feedback on this doesn't make sense, or I don't think this works well, and I don't understand where this is coming from. And then, so realistically, I think aiming for a June, July release uh, would be a good target. I think there's enough structure in here now that it can change, um, and support change as well. So that's good. Um, I'd like to get someone who is very good at UI UX though. I want a good UI UX, and I don't think what I've got is sufficient. In the backlog of things we've got to talk about, there's some extra pieces, things like adding tasks, adding attachments and comments on other things. I think that does involve some refactoring. That would come after this next release. I think this next release probably doesn't go with some of these things. I want to get subscriptions in there, um, so that we can validate user limits and stuff. We can test those things, because the ability to deal with subscriptions, how we deal with them, is not really the concern of the system, but the fact that they exist and that we can say, oh, okay, you can't, like, we've already validated, if we delete the subscription, you can't log in. It takes you to a screen, right? But put user limits on those subscriptions, get those pieces working. Um, Actually, that got done. That was completed, by virtue of other things. Comments on tasks, comments on requirements. I still think, I think comments, I don't want to do comments. I want to make them conversations. I want to start a conversations thing, which would mean a new component, because everything could have a conversation against it. And I think there's a potential for hooking in integrations so that conversations can be had elsewhere. Um, I think this is a requirement for. No, there's a bug there. This is a requirement for go live. Well, I think this is a requirement for the next release, being able to see the task, because that's a complaint that is very easy to have. Basically, when you go here and add a request, no. Oh, it's not running. Basically, when you add a requirement, the tasks appear down the side when you expand the requirement, showing the list of actual tasks, so that you can actually see what you're adding as you're planning it. That's a must-have for the next release, to the test system. Images do not load. This is an easy fix. It just needs to be done. We've got the kind of the indicate presence right now, but I think there's more to it than that. So yeah. I think there's a lot to do. Um, and we've got to figure out the permissions piece as well, like how to add it in and make sure it's configurable. But I think June would be a reasonable release window. June, July would be a release window. Alpha String, thank you very much for the follow. So let's get this. I know that I'm kind of out of time, but did I test this one? And status has changed. If I go to here and comment out the status, does it fail? Does it catch it? Yes, it does. So we have that one. And then one last test to have a little bit more confidence in this piece. Realistically, I couldn't make the PR against this change without doing that. So there's just it would just be bad to leave that lying around everywhere. Current status, and that becomes the expected title. We run that, it'll pass. If you're interested in learning more about the project, if you want to ask more questions, there is a Discord. It's linked in the cards below. You're more than welcome to use the Discord. I didn't run that test again. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to talk about the project. This is not open source. This is a full project that I do intend to make a product. But it is. But I'm happy to talk about it. I love shit. I love streaming it and sharing the experience of building an application the way I really would. Well, semi really would. Make that cheddar. Plus, we can throw stones. Hi, keyboard cowboy. How you doing? So, yeah, we are making progress. Okay, so we got those unit tests in there. So, refactor feature, yeah, refactor included unit tests to fill gap on verifying changes of planning item. Okay. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about this stuff. I'm always happy to share my experience. There are some of these libraries that I do open source, the Kafka pieces, which need a bit of work. I've just identified that the changes component is broken, so that's probably going to be my next focus later on today to try and get changes up and running. It looks like there's a bug in the MongoDB instance version. But yeah, the goal will be very much to continue that. So I need to do tasks, add tasks, bug, changes for MongoDB not working. Changes are erroring the outbox. DB. This needs produced. So I'm using the system to build the system. It might not be perfect, but it works. Ready for development, prepare for next release. So that will be my focus later on. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about this, always happy to share. And you can see the project's starting to take a lot more shape. It's starting to become more feasible as a product. Being said, I tend to use async test methods because it keeps your tests a bit cleaner and usage in tests more closely matches actual usage, which I'm guessing as an async await. Plus, I think the test framework's optimized for async, so probably a bit more efficient when you're running them. I get that, but I suppose if I'm calling async things internally, then it doesn't, then it kind of flows. But Yeah. I'd have to look because you can't actually call those arrange act async. I'd have to change my entire test just to get away from one async await. Um, but it doesn't not work. Um, so I'll have to give it a lot though. I appreciate the feedback though, Des. Um, I come from my unit testing started, long before async await, so it's kind of um, a habit change, I suppose. Async lifetime in X unit, I think. Okay, I'll give it a look. We'll see if we can get some changes in there. I mean, again, these are unit tests. They're not actually doing anything that really needs async await specifically. So I don't know if I'm going to get anything particularly um, out of that, but we can definitely try it. The challenge will be if I can make those my pattern of arrange act function with async because I don't think they are tests. Okay. However, that is me for today. I have to go do some work. It's getting late. I need to get ready for work and get on with some stuff. Becoming allergic to get result now, I think. For whether I'm using it, I don't really worry about it too much, but I get you. I don't use that in normal code. Um, it is Wednesday. One Line streams on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. One Line is another .NET developer. Fantastic developer. Really great stream to go and hang out in. Highly recommend. He's working. He shares working on his actual work. And you see the realities of actually dealing with what customers and clients request versus just making it up as you go along. Um, and on Fridays, he has community days, which last Friday was fantastic. I was going to join The Voice, and then Phil Schnabel was in there giving a lesson on using Cake to do deployment stuff. And yeah, I just got hooked on watching that. So, highly recommend. But today, we are going to go and raid Anna. Anna is a game and .NET dev streamer and does all sorts of stuff. Like, uh, yeah, uh, crazily talented. Um, but yeah, I will be back tomorrow. We'll be doing some more developers.stream tomorrow. So yeah, on Monday we got Twitch integration working. So for those of you who are new to the stream, I have two projects going. One is Liquid Sky, which is this project, which is the main focus of my stream. Project management and planning, but I'm also trying to build a community site called developers.stream, which will help promote and support developers who stream, regardless of platform. So that is one of the things I care very much about, bringing up other streamers and allowing other developers to share what they do. So I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you again soon. Bye all.